Hello everybody, it's me, your good friend Sparky, and welcome back to the Sparky Japan Trip Vlog series, describing my adventures in Japan on my 2-week trip. If you have not watched the first part of this series, please do. It describes my adventures in Tokyo and all of the places that I went to and experienced in the big city area. From this point on, it's going to be more about when I was staying in Kazuno. Much smaller area, much less big city-like. A couple of things actually, that I forgot to bring up about my time in Tokyo was mostly about when we were at Tokyo Station. We had to check out of our hotel fairly early in the morning, and then our trip on the bullet train to go to Kazuno was in the afternoon. So we ended up wandering around Tokyo Station quite a bit, and all the various shops and restaurants and things that you could find there. A couple particular interesting locations that we ended up going to. There was actually a Pokemon Center type area in Tokyo Station with some kind of exclusive Tokyo Station merchandise, mostly featuring Pikachu in a little conductor's outfit. That particular Pokemon Center ended up having a check-in for Pokemon Home there too, where if you signed into the app, you could end up getting a little medal in-game, just kind of saying that you were there. And I was actually there, and it was pretty freaking cool, honestly, to have that sort of like digital memento recorded in my game. And another spot that we ended up finding was the Kirby Cafe Petite. There is a larger Kirby Cafe in Tokyo that's more of a proper restaurant, I guess you could say. But being able to like go there was by reservation only, and I did not plan ahead properly regarding that. So yeah, did not end up actually getting to go to the Kirby Cafe proper, but the Kirby Cafe Petite was more of a little gift shop where you could find various bits of Kirby merchandise and little desserts and things like that. I ended up getting a little tin of Kirby cookies, which was very nice. Cookies were very tasty. And ended up getting a couple Kirby-themed pins as well, in addition to all the various other pins and things like that I had collected up to that point. But once our designated train actually arrived at Tokyo Station, we took the bullet train to Morioka, and then from Morioka, we took a bus to Kazuno, and we relaxed for the rest of the night. And that kind of ended up being the theme of day number 5 as well. Just more of a casual day. My sister ended up giving me a tour around Kazuno, where she is staying for her work. I got to see the local temple and shrine there as well, and just kind of ended up taking the day to look around at all the various locales in Kazuno. A particular highlight was where we ended up going for dinner to a restaurant whose name is escaping me right now, but it was still fun to be there because they had a cat robot waiter. Just like a little robot with a cat face on it that ended up bringing your food to your table, and it was just very bizarre. But it was bizarre but fun. I've heard of restaurants using these robots before, but I've never really experienced it in any capacity. I tried my best to get a video of the robot, but I kind of failed. I tried my hardest, though. I definitely did. But day 5, it was pretty casual, more or less. And day 6 was kind of like that as well. We ended up going to a restaurant called Sushiro, which is kind of, as the way my sister described it, fast food sushi. They had all kinds of, like, crazy sushi combinations and things there you could order. And how it worked was when you sat down at the table, you ordered your food off of a tablet, and then your sushi would be delivered to you via a conveyor belt on, like, color-coded platforms, so you didn't, made sure you weren't grabbing the wrong food, you know? You got alerted on the tablet as your food was arriving, and then you picked it up, then you ordered more, and you just kind of stuffed your face on sushi as much as you wanted. I kind of failed in the sense that I did not get any kind of pictures or videos while I was in the restaurant. I didn't want to look too weird recording the sushi conveyor belt delivering my food. But yeah, it was another bit of a different dining experience. Cat robots and conveyor belt sushi. Definitely not something I've often experienced in America. As well, on day 6, we went to a Namco arcade, which was pretty fun. And we also went to a store called Book Off, which is sort of a chain of used merchandise stores. A particular interest, of course, for me was various different kinds of anime merch and video games and things like that. And of course, books, I assume. I didn't really look at too many books, but you know, there's probably books there. There were 2 additions to my video game collection that I ended up picking up while I was at Book Off as well. One was a physical copy of Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Duel Dawn of the Battle Royale, a game that was released in English digitally, but not actually physically. And the other one was a physical copy of Dragon Quest XI S, which had like a special art sleeve on it that I had never seen before, and that just, considering how much I have been like playing and experiencing Dragon Quest in recent times, it just felt kind of right to grab it. Both of these definitely are really cool additions to my game collection. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Game in particular, and I was not expecting this, it still had the promo cards with it, which was honestly a really cool find. And like I said, I had never seen a copy of Dragon Quest XI quite like this, though, with the special sleeve on it. So, it felt right. It felt right to grab both of these. Though I did end up discovering that, apparently, unlike several other Switch games where you can buy them from any region and pop them into your Switch or Switch 2 and it'll just play it in the region appropriate language, these games apparently do not do that. And while it's not necessarily a big deal for Yu-Gi-Oh!, considering I already digitally owned the English version of the game, for Dragon Quest XI, not being able to play that game in English, considering it's a very large-scale RPG, might prove to be a bit of a challenge, considering I don't really know the language that it's being played in. I suppose it could make for a bit of a fun challenge run of sorts, but yeah, neither of these games boot up the English version of the game when you pop them into the system, which is a bit disappointing. I was not actually aware that that could happen. I just kind of assumed that every Japanese Switch game you buy would, if it had an English version, it would launch in English. But that's not the case, it seems, with these particular games. Apparently, that's actually more of a rarity than I really thought it would be. But, oh well. You know, it's fine. They still make nice little shelf pieces for my Switch game collection. I guess it just means I need to buy an English version of Dragon Quest XI at some point still. But that's fine. Day 7 ended up being a bit more involved, however, where we ended up going to Lake Tawada. Lake Tawada, and I quote, occupies the caldera of a stratovolcano still regarded as active. Meaning that, technically, it could erupt. Maybe not the lake itself, but there is still technically active volcanic activity in the area. And apparently Japan is home to many volcanoes that are still regarded as active, the most famous of which being Mount Fuji, of course. But yeah, just the fact that I was visiting an area that is considered volcanically active, that was a thought in the back of my head. Granted, I wasn't too concerned of there being, like, an active magma flow or anything like that while I was visiting, but, you know, it's still something to consider. Regardless of what you might think of being surrounded by, like, an active volcano, Lake Tawada actually was very peaceful, very calming, just beautiful sights. One of the definite highlights of the visit was going into the wooded area and visiting the local shrine there. Just seeing those shrines in person and just the architecture on them and things like that, they are stunning to view, honestly. And being surrounded by the woods, it very much hit close to home in a way, because I grew up in a wooded area exploring the forest around my home, and while there are no Japanese shrines in my woods, it felt like, it felt correct to be there and kind of being able to explore the area. I also ended up purchasing a good luck charm while I was there at the shrine, and that good luck charm is hanging in my recording area right now, where I do all of my video work and edits and uploads and stuff like that. Hopefully in an attempt to bring some good luck to my YouTube channel, and maybe some good luck to you, faithful viewers, by extension. But of course, one of the primary locations of interest at Lake Tawada is the lake itself. And I ended up going on a ferry ride across the lake there. The weather at the lake was beautiful, like perfectly clear skies, only so many clouds. The lake itself is just this perfect shade of blue, and being able to just sail around it and just kind of chill out and relax, wander around the boat, get a good view of all the sights of the lake, it was just really cool. It was serene and relaxing, much like the shrine in the forest. Just Lake Tawada, it's definitely a bit of a tourist area, I guess. There were a lot of people there, but it was just chill. It was just, you know, just nice to be around, I guess. The ferry ride went for quite a while, too, so you just got this opportunity just to relax and be surrounded by the lake and nature. I had been on, like, a ferry before, at one point, but it had been a really long time. I had not been on, like, a boat of any kind proper since about middle school. So, in addition to my first train trip, my first plane trip, this was my first boat trip in quite a while, too. Just experiencing all of these experiences that I had not experienced before, or had not experienced in a while, was quite the experience. And another point of interest on Lake Tawada is that you could take swan boats out. You know those big boats that look like a duck or a swan, and they're powered by pedals? You could rent one of those for like a half an hour, I think it was. We did not end up using it for a full half an hour, though, because those boats, they're really hard to pedal. It is much harder to pedal and control those boats than you would necessarily expect. By the time we were done with our little swan boat lake adventure, my legs hurt a lot. The amount of force you need to push those boats through the water, it's definitely a lot more intense than it really looks. Of course, we were interested in the swan boats too, because it related back to Digimon, the parts of the Dark Master's arc where Matt was having his emotional crisis and was leaving the group and took off in a swan boat across a lake. Maybe it was the equivalent to Lake Tawada. I don't really know, but, you know. Just the entire trip to Lake Tawada, it was a very different sort of experience than all the time in Tokyo. There were still a lot of people there, but it was more natural and more relaxing than navigating crowds and crowds and crowds and people in the Tokyo train stations and things like that. So, yeah, it was... It felt good. It just felt good to be there and just be out in nature for a while. With our lake adventures done, however, day 8 was a bit more of a relaxed day. Just kind of chilling out at my sister's apartment for the most part. Because we had basically been on the move to different locations since we had arrived, or since I had arrived in Japan, rather. Since our days in Tokyo, going to various restaurants, going to Lake Tawada, it was nice just to kind of have a day where we did nothing, and I just got to chill out on my vacation to Japan. We did end up ordering pizza for dinner that day, which is not something I had actually done before. Of course, it being Japan, your pizza options are appropriately not the usual pizza options you would expect from, like, your casual pizza place. We ended up getting what the website translated out to as plenty of shrimp pizza. And yes, there was shrimp on the pizza. There was also mayonnaise and corn on the pizza. Which sounds like a combination that doesn't necessarily seem too appetizing at first, but I was far too curious, and of course we ended up getting it, and it actually ended up being really good. I was a doofus and forgot to take a picture of the pizza, of course, but, you know, I'm a doofus, so what did you really expect? And thus we come to day 9, which ended up being another adventure day where we went back to Morioka, where we had briefly stopped after the bullet train took us there on our way to Kazuno. The idea at first was to go to a big arcade called Round 1, but at that point, we had been in an arcade in basically every mall we had visited, so, you know, it was just gonna be more of the same on a bigger scale for the most part. Round 1, of course, had a lot of different attractions other than just the arcade, but we just kind of decided to make it another more casual day of the trip. We ended up going to another store, though, that I believe was called Yorazuya, if I'm remembering the name correctly, where they had huge sections of different anime and game merchandise there. Like, if there was a series you were a fan of, you could probably find a section of statues or figures or keychains or just little toys of your favorite anime or game series there. They had a lot of stuff. I believe it's a location my sister had visited quite frequently to get me various gifts and things like that from there. I have several collectibles and stuff like that that I'm pretty sure had come from that particular store of my various favorite characters. And while I was there, there were two things that I ended up finding that definitely caught my interest, and I'm very happy that I ended up finding them. One of them was a Dragon Ball Z soundtrack CD. It was the first in a long series of soundtrack CDs called the Dragon Ball Z Hit Song Collections. And this particular first CD was released in 1989, a year before I was born. And I ended up buying it for 700 yen, which translates out to about $5 with the given exchange rate, I guess. And this particular CD, it got my brain thinking. And this is something I think of a lot when I buy, like, a used game or something like that. Just thinking about what kind of journey that this particular CD took. Like, it was broken in spots, the cover does not stay on. I kinda had to open it backwards because it was taped on the other end and the hinge was broken, so it was just... It really made me think. This CD was released in 1989. It ended up in this particular location after passing hands how many times? And now it is in my house in America. It has made a journey all the way across the world after being who knows where for the past, 36 years? I think about this sort of thing a lot when I buy things like this. Just imagining the places this particular item has been and the people that have owned it, maybe. It may have passed from person to person several times to end up at that particular store I bought it at. And now it is mine forever, because I doubt I'm ever going to get rid of it. I don't know, am I weird for that? I think about that so often when I buy, like, a used item. Just thinking about the journey it took to finally end up getting to me. And another item I found there, actually, that made me think the same thing, was this little toy of Patamon from Digimon. Of course, if you don't really understand or know it by now, my sister and I, being gigantic Digimon fans, we of course collected a lot of the Digimon toys when they were new, when the show was first airing in America. We had this whole series of tiny Digimon action figures where, you know, they did one little action where they moved their arms or whatever, and we played with those toys constantly, like, all the time. But one we were always missing from that time was Patamon. And this particular Patamon toy, I am, like, 100% positive, is from that very series of toys. I remember seeing it on the back of packaging. I remember looking it up on eBay and things like that, contemplating buying it just to add it to the collection. And there it was, in Japan, hanging on a shelf for something like 300 yen. And I just had to have it. I had to have it, just to add it to a collection that has been missing a piece for years at this point. I think now the only Digimon from the original Digimon Adventure we are missing from that particular toy line is Palmon, and I think I need to make an active effort to try and find it now, just so the collection is complete, and we have all of them, finally. But for real, I look at this Patamon and I think about, what journey did you take, little toy, in Japan to end up at that store to finally reach me and be added to the collection of Digimon toys from my childhood? My mind races with this sort of thing sometimes, and just thinking about it makes me happy to know that its eventual journey led its way to me. And now, I have it. And it's awesome, and I love it. The entire experience in Japan, thinking about the things I found and the things I saw, it just blows my mind to really consider the fact that I was actually there. I did all this. I was there for 2 whole weeks experiencing all this. And it's still just very surreal that it actually happened to me, and I'm not hearing it secondhand about it happening to someone else. But I think for now, that's gonna be it for this particular stretch of the Japan vlog adventures. We're gonna have one more vlog where I talk about the last few days I was in Japan, which some of it ended up probably being some of the most exciting parts of the entire trip. More of those little bits of the adventure that still blow my mind that I got to experience firsthand. Until then, though, that's going to be it for now. Thank you so much for watching this. If you haven't watched the first part of my Japan trip vlog, please go ahead and go watch that too. For now, though, This is your good friend Sparky signing off, and I'll catch you later.